Other presentation you would use to catch bass. What I'm going to be talking about today is a quick presentation with just a bass hook. So you can switch out your lures really fast if all you got on there is a bass hook. I'm going to show you how many things you can actually use and how many different presentations you can use while you're just using one bass hook. So I'm going to point it down here now, and I've set up some stuff for you to look at. So here we go, and I'm going to explain what everything is. I got to bring it down a little. Here we go. So here we got some lures I've laid out. There's everything. There's just a regular spinning rod right there, and if you look right here, that spinning rod is attached to that hook right there. Okay, so you can talk about a lot, like I said, when you're talking about bass fishing. So you got to break it down a little bit, because you can talk about finding fish, presentation, conditions, all kinds of stuff. So we're going to break this down today to just presentations. So here we go. So I've got one bass hook right there, and there's some different sizes I put out here. The bigger ones right here is a 5/0. They call that a 5/0. These are all the same bass hook, and there's different ways that we can talk about hooking this up. If I had just two poles and two bass hooks, I'd probably have one bass hook that was big and one that was small, and maybe if I had a third one, I'd have one with a bullet on it. This is a bullet weight right here. So these weights, you can see a little shadow behind them. Let me pick one up so you can see it better. Put it in my hand. So that's a bullet weight. Okay, that would be for getting the lure down there where the fish are, like when they're sitting tight near some cover or something like that, and going slow when you're going kind of slow. You can also use it to go fast, like to put it on the end of like on the front of a swim bait or something, and run it fast. So let's just go through this real quick. So I got my these are 5/0s here. These are all inline sharp hooks. They keep the lures straight. This right here is a 4/0, so I got it going down 3/0, 2/0, and so we go down. You see they're getting smaller. So 5/0 was our biggest one, then we got 4/0, 3/0, and then 2/0. I actually have a pretty small one on there right now. I like to be pretty versatile. There's a lot of different size fish out here, but usually you should use more like a 4, but sometimes I find myself fishing in places that have a lot of small bass too, so I can catch both with that. But if I had my druthers, I'd probably put out here where the fish are like 2 to 4 pounds. I'd use like a 3/0 or a 4/0. I think right now I got probably a 2/0 on there. I was fishing at a place where it was small, but anyway, here's a bunch of lures. So let's go over this, and these represent different presentations that we would use out there, and you could use every single one of these. Every single one of these can be used and switched out immediately just because you have a hook on there, and that's it. I just tie the hook straight on just like that. Let's see if you can see the line or not, but it's hooked to the pole here, and that's it. Just a hook straight on, a no tag, not much of the line sticking off of it. So now I've got all these opportunities that I can fish with. So this right here is this would be good for bed fishing. This is a lizard. Right here would be good for structure, cover, tight, when they're sitting tight and low. You can use these crawfish, and you can hook them up to where they are weedless. Right here we've got some worms. I've got different styles of worms here. So I've started with like slow baits, really slow baits, like bed fishing would be that lizard, and then, you know, pretty slow baits. You could do them fast or slow though. Sometimes you swim these, sometimes you do them slow, but that's another presentation we have right here. So I've got kind of a creature bait and a crawfish right there. Good for staying in the strike zone down low, and kind of working them hard, because it's a really natural bait, and they tend to really love them. So, and then we got some Senkos here. I've got a Senko with a little tail on it right there. I've got different colors. Might be hard to see the colors, but I brought out a Senko that's kind of, let's see, shad red there. Turn that. And then this is called a trick worm. Trick worms are fun for, like, you know, if you don't, you can do a lot of things with trick worms. You can put little panel nails inside of them, have the panel nail in the front of the nose, and it'll put the nose down and stick the tail up, or you can put it in the middle, and it'll kind of like be good for swimming. When you're swimming straight, put the panel nail in there, and you can decide how big it should be so that the weight can be what you need it to be. Whether they're, you know, hitting fast or hitting slow, you decide what kind of panel nail that you'd want on there for getting down deeper or not getting down so far, or just suspending in the middle, or just not put one on at all if you need a really light presentation. So, okay, then we move on to a ribbon tail. Let's get out of this, get the shade out of the way. So we got a ribbon tail worm right here, and then I've got a grub. I'm getting a little faster if you notice, so now we're going to grub, getting faster lures. Then I've got, this is a, these are tubes, so I've got a small tube here and a pretty good sized tube here. And then we've got some swim baits here, just little minnow style. It's actually called Bass Assassin there, and the other one's like a finesse or something. So we got those two. That's for like when they're really active, maybe, I don't know, 3-4 feet down. You can do them that way on the shallows, or if you want to bring it down deeper, just hook it up to the one that has the bullet head in front of it. Remember, you got two hooks you could have out there. One could have a bullet head in front of it, and one could just be naked like that one. I've got some other pinch-ons here that if I wanted to add like some weight and get it down quicker, I would just pinch one of these on. As long as I'm hooking these up weedless and really nicely like that, weedless, these things won't cause too much grief. I'd rather have the pinch-on bullet heads, but you can still use these if you need to. So we're moving on down to faster lures. Now I got two last lures here. This is a topwater frog. I put two colors here. So every one of these baits can be hooked up to just that hook. So you can switch out really quick. If one presentation's not working for you and you need to change up, then you can just switch out really quick. I've got one hooked up already just to show you. And you know, I'm not really going to go over this too much because it's really almost the same every time. So the way this is hooked up, I'm going to hook one up in a minute too to show you how to do it. But the way this is hooked up, basically, there's a part that is turned. Let me get this here so I can show you. So at the very top there's a little turn in the hook. So that's where you'd put the top of the bait, and that keeps it straight. And you just put a little bit in there and then come out and then come back into the body down in the middle like that, and then we'll come back out. So I am going to, let's see here how we can do this. I'm gonna hook one up and find out how I can hold this thing though while I'm doing it. Let's see. I'm gonna slip this into my bag here. Let's see if this works. No, it's not working. No. Let's see. I'll just put it right here. So I've got it leaned up here. Alright. So it really doesn't matter which bait we pick, but I'm going to use a frog. I'm a big fan of topwater fishing, and this is just a little buzz frog. This style anyway, kind of like a topwater with the little paddle tails on the back so that it'll make some movement. Got this really sitting funny. I hope you guys can see this so that I can have my iPhone sitting up. Sorry. So anyway, I'm gonna start by, so I got the frog here. I'm gonna start by turning him where his belly is facing me. This is the top and this is the belly. So I'm going to take the hook. The hook kind of tells you what to do because it starts to bend. So if you go in and right before it starts to bend, come back out like that, and then push it down. There's a little crook. There's a crook right here. So you go all the way over that crook. Now look, that crook's coming out straight. So I'm going to bend the little frog up a little bit and then push it into his belly and come out the other side. There's a little place for that hook to lay. So there you go. So every one of these baits can be hooked up pretty much like that. All of these baits can be hooked up like that. I might do one more just to show you that they're all the same. Let's see. Some people overlook, I'm gonna pull this back out this way. Some people overlook a grub. So I'm gonna put a grub on here. That's why I used a small hook today. So you can see that too. So if you're not fishing with a grub, sometimes you're gonna be overlooking some good opportunities. Here we go. I think I got it set up for you. Alright, so here's a grub. And we're gonna do the same thing. Just to show you, it's almost the same thing every time. So the hook tells me where to turn. I push it in. I'm pushing it at the top there. And then the hook's starting to turn. So I come out the other side. And then I start to turn up this way. Can you see that? So we push it down. And once again, we get to that crook. And we pull it over the crook so that it's coming out straight like that. Alright. Then we got a little bit of room here to hook this back into. So you always curl it up a little bit and then hook it in and come out the other side. Then on one of, like a grub or a plastic worm, you're going to put a little bit of that skin back into it. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to point to it. There's a little bit of hook skinned into the rubber right there. Okay, so that keeps it weedless. So if I wanted to add a little bullet or add a little weight to the top, just depending on, you know, how fast I want to run it or how low I want to run it or how slow, if I don't want it, I won't put it on there. But sometimes, you know, if you want to get a good cast or run it kind of fast, if they're hitting fast, then you can put a just a little pinch. You can pinch a little weight on there. Let me see if I can find one. I do this all the time when I need to switch up a different presentation. I'll just get a little split shot and let's see if you can see this. Okay, so I've got a little split shot in my hand, a little tiny split shot, and I just put them right in front of the line there and pinch them on. I don't like them hanging way up. I'm going to pinch this real quick and then bring it back. I don't like them hanging way up in front. I like putting on just like it was a jig head. So right on top of his head for me. That's the way I like it. Alright. So if you know your presentations, then we've gone over some swim baits, some fast baits. So when they're hitting fast, maybe in the fall or the spring or something like that, or they're hitting slow in maybe the winter or the deep summer, we've gone over like slow baits, like worms and crawfish, and then we went over some fast baits like tubes. Let me just show you a tube real quick. So there's a tube bait. Tubes are really finesse. You can do a lot with tubes. You can fish them like little crawfish down in the bottom, or you can run them, and they love them. I've caught a lot of bass on tubes. And then if they're really hitting shad or something like that, you can do a swim bait like this. You can either do it if they're hitting on the top, you can leave the bullet off and just use that hook. So these things can be switched out really quick. If I don't like what I'm doing, I just pull it off and put another one on. So look at all these presentations you have right at your fingertips with one bass hook. So that's it. I'm just gonna run the camera over top of these baits. I've kind of moved them all around now, but basically we had topwater, swim bait, another swim bait. We talked